This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications podcast with MVPs Joel Lindstrom, George Zabinski, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This episode is sponsored by Ingenius. Ingenius Connector Enterprise integrates your telephone system into Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM for increased phone agent productivity. Features like screen pop, click to dial, and call logging enable efficient customer service and a comprehensive view of caller interactions. We thank Ingenius for sponsoring CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications podcast.
I feel like a guest now. I haven't been here for so long.
I know. We feel like we should have you introduce yourself again. But Sean will be here shortly. But there's been a lot of things happening. I mean, we're in the part of the year. This is the end of Microsoft's fiscal year, so usually Microsoft gets really, really serious about trying to close out software deals, and you kind of enter kind of the lull before everybody goes on vacation in July, and then the conferences hit. But there's been a surprising number of announcements this week, and some things that I thought would be good to talk about. So let's get into kind of the news, business applications news. We don't have Sean to be our newscaster, so I'm filling in for Sean on this. The first thing, and most significant from my perspective, is they announced on the Tech Blitz that a lot of the remaining gaps in the unified interface are going to be filled. Now, some of these, like the bulk update, merge, advanced find buttons, are going to be, you might say, hybrid solutions to begin with. They're not going to be a unified interface dialog for advanced find, but what you'll have is you'll have a command bar button that will launch the dialog for advanced find from the web UI, which won't work on mobile. I'm predicting it won't work on mobile because I pulled up Advanced Find using like Safari or Chrome in mobile in desktop mode, and it doesn't render well. But at least for people on full browsers, I think this could be the thing that fills a lot of the gaps that are keeping people from fully adopting the unified interface. There's also going to be a revamped connections and some other things that are missing from unified interface. So that's a great step, I think. So let me ask you, George, once that's there and those missing pieces are there, is there any reason why we shouldn't just go all in on the unified interface? Is there a reason we should stick with the traditional web UI?
For the new customers?
Yeah, for a new deployment. Yeah, if you're an existing customer, you don't want to rock the boat, but for a new deployment.
I just migrated a customer from CRM 2013, and I spent probably a day migrating their views, personal views. And as you know, personal views are one of those, a handful of entities where you, as administrator, you still don't have access to all the data.
Right.
You have to impersonate user by user. So basically, customer put the foot down and said, hey, look, we've got like 50 plus users, and each user has anywhere between 5 to 20 views per entity. Important one, it's like a handful of important entities, and they said we want to migrate all of it, and we want to migrate sharing as well. So it turned into a kind of mini project and on its own. And yeah, I know there is a view migrator in the XRM toolbox, but at this point in time, the released version doesn't do impersonation in full. So I'm still working with the.
How did you move the personal views? Did you?
I had to write the code.
Write something?
Yes.
Okay.
I had to write the code, which I'm looking into merging with some code in XRM toolbox. But anyway, so. The bottom line is, after I migrated a few hundred of those views, right, I had a conversation with the business manager of the company, and I said, why you even, what are you doing? It's like, I take my eye off you, and you guys go wild and just basically ruin everything. And her response was that, well, if sharing's so bad, why is it even there, right? So to me, moving Advanced Find, it's a questionable move because I see the nightmare continuing. People creating views, and then once you start moving between the systems, say, "Oh no, we want those views," and the problem is that once you do a migration, not backup restore, but a migration, you have to move certain things. You can't just, copy paste. I wonder what is the overall value of just plonking Advanced Find as is into unified interface. So to me, I have a customer who does work entirely in UCI, and they quite happy about it. It's like they happy and they don't know what they're missing.
I had this very similar conversation to this with a client just a couple weeks ago, and I think one of the things that I'm seeing is a shift from having Advanced Find as an assumption that everybody's going to use it to where a more intuitive design and better form of the views and the quick find columns really takes away a lot of the users that would need Advanced Find, in my view.
Well, you didn't hear the pain I described. I just migrated a customer and spent the day writing code because migrating views, personal views, because they had few hundred personal views. Most of them shared with other people, and I said that was their way to customize UIs. So with UCI, having ability to build apps where you can select views that you can kind of customize and effectively selectively give to people takes away the need for this mess with the view sharing. So it would have made much easier customization for this customer, maintenance for this customer, and rare occasions when they do need something they can't pull out of the hat themselves. They would approach us and say, "Hey, look, we need this, this, and that," and we would go ahead and figure something out. So the bottom line is that the view. So going back to the original Joe's statement, I'd say that having those gaps filled, it's not actually going to make a huge difference to UCI world, simply because if you are using UCI app from ground up and you position this app correctly, those gaps are not as huge as Joel would lead me to believe.
No, it's not. But it's a mental thing for existing customers that they have something and feel they're losing it.
Here you go. You say existing customers, and I did sort of start this conversation with the statement that for the new apps and new customers. So
right, but when I talk to when we start a new project and I talk to the architect on the project, I ask the question, why can't this be unified interface? And unless there's a specific reason, and what I'm saying, these are the big reasons why.
Excuse what you say.
Well, the connections thing is something because connections doesn't work on mobile or UCI, and the fact that it will in July, that's an actual design choice. That if you don't have that on a unified interface, that's something that you would say, I can't use it because I can't show those connections or make those connections.
Yeah. Well, again, I would say architects are pulling excuses on you, but
those architects, they make all kinds of excuses, right? Right, Sean?
Exactly.
All right, so let's move to the next story.
I know better.
Next story. The next story is, and the interesting thing I found is now with the business applications platform, you can't get all your news from one blog. You can't just go to the CRM blog and get all the news. So something
get
from
all the news from CRM Audio.
Then go to the power,
and at yourservicepod.com. Dude, you got to market the other sites. Help me out.
So the next story, and this wasn't on the CRM blog, but the auditing features, the auditing enhancements they've recently made as part of GDPR. Go to CRM Tip of the Day 1123, and it's pretty interesting stuff because GDPR, those of us in North America, sometimes say ho-hum about GDPR because it doesn't apply to us unless we're doing business in Europe. But really some of the changes they're making are really changing some things that add a lot of really nice functionality, even if you don't care about GDPR. And these audit changes are pretty exciting. So there's a list of things, both admin and data read functions, that you now can audit. So you can audit, for example, who makes configuration changes, who publishes customizations, who provisions an instance, who imports a solution. And then on the data read side, you can see who exported data to Excel, who ran a report, who exported a report to PDF or Excel. And these aren't the traditional audits. These are Office 365 audits. And so I believe it doesn't look like they're taking up your storage in Dynamics, and they're visible from Office 365 along with the audits from other Office 365 applications.
It's the area called security and compliance in Office 365.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. So if you go to that, I have got a link to the documentation in the tip, but there's a big long list of things, and this is SDK level. This isn't on the entity level. It's not like I've got to check the box on the account entity to make sure it's auditing. You turn on activity auditing, and it audits this pretty much for everything.
Have you actually switched it on and looked at the data?
I have not, and here's why. Because it's only available in a production environment, and you have to have an E3 or E5 license. So I'm excited to. I'm going to check it out in one of my clients' environments, but unfortunately I don't have it. It doesn't require V9. If you're on version 8 and have an E3 or E5, you can turn this on.
But hold on, E3 for what user? Like if I have 50 users in Dynamics and 49 sitting on Business Premium and only one on E3, do I get
It says you have to have an Office 365 Enterprise E3 or E5 subscription to do activity logging. So that's a good question. I had that same thought, is if you've got some with E3 and some not with E3, do the ones without E3 get audited, or does it mean you have to have E3 to view the auditing? That's a good question that I think Microsoft should clarify.
I'll be interested to see that because we did internally for one of my projects, we did a custom entity to catch admin changes, so we could monitor who's doing what in the environment outside of our team, and it worked very nicely. So I'll be interested to check this out and see how well it works.
Right, and you can see the one that intrigues me that I would like to check out is the team management. It says who was added, who was deleted, and what access right the team had. So that's really interesting.
Agreed.
So check that out, especially if you got an E3 or E5. Would love to hear some feedback from people who have actually used this. I immediately sent this to 6 different customers who I remembered during the implementation had said something like, so can I see who exported data to Excel, or could I see who ran a report, or could I see who published a configuration change? And I had to say, unfortunately, no, you can't do that.
So
give that a try and check back with us. So George will be away for the rest of the episode auditing stuff.
That's funny.
All right. Bob Geidinger, is that how you pronounce his name? Bob wrote a blog post about using Flow to notify you when your version changes in Dynamics 365. Something that, if you notice, we are getting weekly updates on version 9, and people say, well, how do I know when my version has changed? And so an interesting use of Flow is use the version monitor solution that Bob published and use Flow to get notified when your version changes.
he also wrote another one on using Flow to schedule reports and such. A couple of really good tools that he just
Tell me,
released
I didn't
very
see the
recently.
report scheduling one. What was that? How is that working?
I have not used it. I just saw that it was available and looked at his blog post on it. It looked pretty intuitive, but again, haven't used it yet. So
Hats off to Bob to kind of formalizing it in a nice way using Azure
yeah,
functions and things like that. But basically, it hinges on the idea that if you have a better token, which was introduced with OAuth, and you can use it for Web API and SOAP access. It's like a gold ticket, and if you have this token, you can call. Basically, you can construct a backend, an SSRS URL that would take this token and would render this report for you. So, yeah, you would be using some undocumented features, but it does work, and I don't see it's changing anytime soon. So it is a good way to for the customers who sort of want those features desperately, and they're saying it's a showstopper. I bet you do have some of those that would say it's ability to schedule those reports. It's critical. We're not going online just because of that. So it is important stuff for some customers, and ability to schedule it. Yeah, it's great.
Well, that's the other thing though is scheduling is great, but usually tied in with scheduling, you want subscriptions where people can say, "I want to get this email in my inbox every Friday," and that's where I bring up, why don't you just go with Power BI? Because Power BI has native subscription functionality. You can subscribe to a dashboard report and have it deliver your dashboard to your email.
But how do you do give me my opportunities report?
Of just your opportunities?
Yeah. You can't do that in Power BI.
you'd have to have it already written.
Yeah, you'd have to write a My Opportunities type dashboard. So that's a good point. Shoot my idea down.
Yeah. My
But I
pleasure.
mean, even the solutions I've seen to schedule reports, though, it's still not giving you that email subscription capability.
Right.
It's just running a report and saving a copy of it. But it's something. Speaking of the notification about the updates and the version changing, Microsoft announced that they've heard feedback loud and clear, and they are going to start sending out emails to administrators about the weekly builds, about when it's happening, notification of when it's happening, and that there might be up to 60 minutes of downtime during that time. So that's a good thing, and that's one thing that I think that I bring up when I talk to people and say, how can I get notified when I have updates? I always ask, do you have access to Office 365? Are you Dynamics Service administrator? Because there's a lot of notifications that go out that I think a lot of CRM administrators don't see just because they don't have access to that. So if you're a CRM administrator, you should have somebody who is in charge of planning for when versions change and when there's downtime. You need to have that Office 365 Dynamic Service admin role, because several times I've had clients who've had gotten a little upset because they had some updates or had some downtime and they didn't know about it. And I said, do you check the messages in Office 365? Are you notified of that? Do you run the Office 365 admin app on your phone so you get a push notification? Those kind of things. And usually they don't.
The one thing I've been running into lately is not just version changes, but the dev environment's on a different version than test, and test is on a different version than UAT. Getting notifications on that will help avoid any solution management issues that you might have because of differing version issues and that sort of thing. So I think it's a valuable tool, but it's just that's one that's been causing me some grief lately.
So stop causing Sean grief.
Yeah.
Who are you talking
Microsoft.
Really anybody that causes me grief, George. Just to stop it.
All right. And the last thing I had in my news list, and this is an example of how, not all this gets published on the Dynamics blog now. This is actually from the Power Apps blog. There is a new add-in for Common Data Service for Excel, which coincidentally works with Dynamics 365 because CDS is Dynamics 365 or XRM, at least the data part of it. So, and that is a new add-in for Excel that lets you basically do CRUD activities on data right from Excel and update directly to Dynamics without having to import the data. So I can see that being really useful, especially for demos. I mean, for one thing, you want to quickly put in 100 different accounts and 50 different contacts. I sent that to some of our pre-sales people, and they were really excited about it because I think there's times where you just want to key in a bunch of data, and times where that might be easier, especially if you want to massage data then import it in.
Did you watch the Australia World Cup match today?
As I commented on our little
Did I miss
chat,
that too?
on our
sorry.
little chat, is that usually Australians are very painful to watch.
Yes.
And it started that way 5 minutes in. I was like a face palm. But you know what? That was the first game I watched where Australians were clearly dominating the rest of the game, and they were really good. They still sucked at closing the deal, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the score stayed 1-1, but it was really good game. And if Australia played like that in a match with France, they would have beaten the crap out of French. And if Australia keeps playing like that, moving forward to the future, most likely we're not gonna make it.
Mm-hmm.
But moving forward, if that's the way they're gonna play in the future, they soon gonna be in the top 20 or 15 football nations in the world. Mark my words, because that was a great game to watch. It was really a good game to watch. So, but we did have discussion about video referee, and whilst it played its role, kind of helping Australians to level the score,
Mm-hmm.
in general, and it's kind of you can map it to our Dynamics world as well, like introduction of new features. Is it helping, or is it actually not helping? So basically the argument against it was that it creates a mediocre referees. So adding all those features to Dynamics, I might argue that it creates a mediocre consultants, because consultants can't be bothered anymore, do some thinking and design, and they're saying to the users, oh, here's new features, go stuff yourself. So by the same token, addition of new features allows you to get away with certain things, and so video referees kind of allows mediocre referees, instead of being assertive on the field, allows them to kind of fall back to the videos. Same way, like if you're a consultant and you're a assertive consultant, you guide your users. Addition of new features allow you to kind of be a mediocre consultant, mediocre architect or designer or developer, and fall back to CRM features, that the new CRM features, and say, hey, look, Advanced Find is now in UCI, go stuff yourself.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that saying, like, if you use the XRM toolbox, you're going to be mediocre? Because in my day, we had to write fetch XML by hand.
No.
Now we use the fetch XML generator.
What I'm saying, if you are using XRM toolbox as your excuse for not doing your job, and if you give an XRM toolbox to your users and using that fact as an excuse of not doing your job, then yes.
I think you have to look.
In my days, we used to write all by hand and code.
In WordPad. Yeah. No.
WordPad for wusses, Notepad.
That's right. But what I think, even with new features, even you can get very excited with the shiny new look and feel of new features, but you have to balance that with what the customer's wanting to do with it, because not every new feature is ready to go production ready for your customers right out the gate. So you can't, to your point, George, you can't just say, oh, there's a new feature, go ahead and use it, it's going to be great. You have to do the due diligence and actually look at it and see if it's going to work. So.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. Send us your feedback at voice@crm.audio. Check out our other shows at crm.audio or subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and any place else podcasts are offered. This podcast is a production of Dynamics Podcast LLC.